Hey everyone, welcome to The Creek. My name is Jared Miller and I'm the ministry lead here, and I'm pleased to be able to have this conversation today with Deanne Barrett, the host of the Radiant Mom podcast. Deanne, thank you so much for being here and welcome to The Creek.
Thank you. So glad to be here with you.
This is kind of the third piece in a YouTube playlist that we're putting out today for families who are wrapping up the first week of school in a time of high anxiety, in a time of high uncertainty, in a time of just a weird time, not a time that a lot of parents, I think, thought they would be kind of prepared for or really had, who knows what's going to happen in the next little while. And so we wanted to kind of put together a playlist of videos that would give parents some frame to, grapple with, did I make the right call? How do I make the next right call? And your experience and your wisdom both as a coach of parents and as somebody who regularly engages with them both, and as a teacher yourself. I'm really looking forward to the wisdom that you bring. So I guess first off, your kids started back to school today, right? Like this was
They did.
The first day.
Yeah. So our kids are in elementary school. Our son started 2 days ago and our daughter started yesterday, and now they're both in school for the first time. So I was just telling Jared, I came home and cleaned my desk, like a clean slate. We're kind of starting fresh with this year. Absolutely. And just on the way to school today, my son was saying, Mom, I'm glad to be back at school. It's too bad we have to wear masks. And so that really sums up the sentiments from the two of them. They were excited to see their teachers, to be with their friends, but too bad it's so weird with all this extra stuff we have to do.
Yeah, so can you tell us a little bit about how you and your husband kind of made the what was your decision-making process for back to school? Did you what were the things that you were weighing, and how did you kind of navigate? Because the meme that kind of inspired this whole playlist was a Kristen Wiig face from SNL a number of years ago, where it was homeschooling my kids, and sending my kids back to school, and something else entirely. There were no good options. So what were kind of the criteria that you looked at, and you and your husband, when you were making this decision?
Yeah, so it was really like many parents over the summer. We were hearing the information from the Minister of Health, reading the information from the Calgary School Board and what they were sending out, and then weighing our own hearts and minds to make the best decision for our family. And we always have kept in mind that it's a decision for now. Mm-hmm. So I got a lot of texts from my kids' friends' parents over the summer, we don't know, we're trying to decide, should we send them back or should we do the online option? And it always looks like there's two options, either we're doing this or this. But there are more options than just two. And so we decided for now, we'll send our kids back to school. And we do this process of what I call resilient thinking. What's the worst that could happen? And I think this is where we're all really it really digs deep into the deep-seated fears that we have. What's the worst thing that could happen? It's that our children would die. And that is a terrifying thought. And when I think about people across the world, parents survive that. And our children will die one day. And we hope it will be many years from now, but we don't know. And it's living in that we don't know that is uncomfortable, but that's the conversation that we had. And I was sharing this with a friend of mine a couple of weeks ago, and she said, Deanne, I'm really shocked, and I feel the weight of this, and it is a punch in the gut to hear you speak this way. Mm-hmm. And I thought, if I can't have that conversation with my husband, where can I have that conversation? That would be the worst thing. And we have to hold that together and understand that this is a risk that we take when our kids cross the street to go to the park, right? There could be a car that comes along. I really think that the biggest risk to my kids right now is the parents driving around the school worried their kids are late. So every day we are faced with that, but we don't think about it and we don't let it sink in. And what happens when we really look at that worst fear is the time we have together becomes more precious. So that was part of the conversation that we had. Worst case, that's what would happen. Second worst is someone in our family gets sick. I am teaching at a university. I'm teaching in-person classes. So there's a whole protocol for me attending school and my students, and then my kids going to their school. And so we have a lot of things that we need to attend to that our government and the wisdom of our health system is telling us we need to attend to.
Right.
And so processing all of that and knowing each day we are making a judgment call. Am I going to school today? Are the kids going to school today? And knowing that what happens when we send them is that they are where they want to be, experiencing life, having joy, being with their friends and their teachers in an environment that they want to be in. And if that becomes difficult, uncomfortable, unsafe, unhealthy, then we'll make a different call tomorrow. And we're in a position where I work part-time and the kids could be at home with me, but that's not where they want to be right now. And we know that precautions are being taken, but this is a large-scale experiment. And I don't use that word to be flippant about it, but really we're using the best information we have. Our leaders are using the best information they have to make a decision for the whole body of our country, of our province, in every aspect, not just our physical health, but also the economics. And we feel like those two things are pitted against each other, but it's a system, an ecosystem that's working together. There has never been a perfect school system. We have never been able to protect our children's health and well-being in the ways that we think we can. If there was an easy button, a solution, we joke about bubble wrapping our kids. We've never been able to protect them in the way that we think we have been able to. Life is risky, and this is really addressing people's ability to assess risk. I was just thinking this morning about when our financial advisor comes over, she will talk to us about what's your level of risk that you're willing to take? And it's about your money, right? How high risk investments are you willing to make? And we realized early on in our marriage that my husband and I have a different level of risk we're willing to take. And that's a real thing in this circumstance too, when parents have different level of risk that they're willing to take, and recognizing that we have been taking invisible risks that we didn't see before. And now it's just coming up for everyone all at the same time. And that's a lot to handle because you get everyone's collective fear coming up at the same time. And we're all trying to assess risks. And so some strategies that help with assessing risk are really working with yourself and your thoughts and emotions. And I talk a lot with my clients who are raising teenagers about living in a low anxiety home. And so we don't listen to the news. We don't have it on. Our kids don't listen to the news or watch the news on TV. My husband and I are selective about the news feeds that we read on our screens alone. And then we have these planning meetings when the kids are in bed. What did you hear? What does that mean we need to do? Just to keep the amount of time limited that we are consuming that information, because there's a lot of fear. And there's a lot of information, there's a lot of repeated information, and that can stir us up. And it's hard on our nervous systems. So we really keep the information load low so that we're not consuming that all of the time. We prioritize our sleep for all of us so that we are all recharged, our bodies are healthy and well rested. And we prioritize being outside in nature, because studies show us that we talk about being a grounded person or down to earth, but literally connecting with nature in any way that you can. If you have a backyard, or if you go walk in the trees, or even if you take care of houseplants, whatever is doable for you, and having your hands in the soil, all of that has a positive effect on your body and your spirit. And so this summer, we spent a lot of time at a lake, in the woods, and doing those things to really recharge ourselves so that we are stepping back into this high stress circumstance recharged, and that we have ways every day and every week to kind of do that recharge so that we can handle it, because we're not only in this kind of soup of germs that everyone's worried about, but we're also in this soup of everyone's anxiety that we're kind of swimming around in all day. So when we can have some practices to really come back to ourselves, reconnect as a family, be with nature, be well rested, those are things that we can do to support our immune systems and our minds and our spirits so that we can take an inventory every day, just like the health checklist. Am I experiencing any of these symptoms? I think we should add anxiety to that. Mm-hmm. And knowing that anxiety doesn't mean we can't do something. It means we need to pay attention. So how do we pay attention to what we're thinking, what we're processing, and how do we work with those emotions? Because anxiety is a completely normal emotion. It's when it takes us over completely and we don't know how to turn down the dial again that it becomes problematic for us and for our kids and for our society collectively. So I know that was a really long spiel on answering how do we make the decision, but that's really how. It's a lot of strategies that we use a lot of to help us have those really uncomfortable, difficult conversations about what if the worst happens.
I love the sort of the like you started this spiel by going into it with open eyes. That you had a really clear kind of sense of let's be intentional about this. And that's one thing I always appreciate about conversations that I get to have with you, is that you do everything with a really strong sense of intentionality, and you're not reacting necessarily. I mean, everything, we all react, but you don't. It doesn't seem like you're caught off guard. Like you mentioned not only communication but also selective consumption of what you choose to internalize, because recognizing that the things that we put into ourselves inputs become outputs, and so I really kind of I think that's a really big takeaway. Thinking through the next little while, how are we consuming media information, and how are we consuming other people's anxiety, I think is a really pressing question that I think parents need to ask. Like Beth and I have been immensely blessed that we, that Elise is not in school, but she's in a day home with kids who are school aged, and so we don't have that first level of anxiety, but we definitely have anxiety about what happens if somebody at their school gets it and then they get it, and then it's 3 steps removed. But the anxiety, like you described it as kind of like swimming in this water of anxiety. And I think that's just such a beautiful metaphor for it. And so, like, as I think one of the pieces that is causing a lot of anxiety, or I think is the unknown, is the sense of there's just a ton of unknowability right now. There's a lot of unknown variables, and this week is not necessarily the hard week. Like, the hard week is going to be what happens when outbreaks start to happen in school, which we're going to have to wait 2 weeks to find out about. And so, as a parent, trying to think through the sort of the anxiety of waiting and uncertainty, how do you coach your clients through that, through the unknowing pieces? Does it, like you mentioned, that going into it with the sort of the eyes open, and but are there other steps? Are there kind of other pieces that to kind of deal with the unknown pieces?
Yeah, I have a client who said, Deanne, I worry about, and this was even pre-COVID, she's worried about lots of things. And her friends will tell her, stop worrying. And I say, no, worry. Please worry. But limit the amount of time you let yourself worry. So a strategy is plan in time to worry, because all of those worries it's your mind trying to problem solve. And so when we can think about, okay, what's the worst case scenario? What am I worried about? And literally write it down. Make a list of what you're worried about. And then on the other side, say, what would you do if it happened? So you're making a plan, at least an initial plan. You don't need a full out detailed plan, but if this happens, this is my next step. And then set that aside. And then focus on right here, right now. What do you have in this moment? And what can you be grateful for? Because a neuroscientist taught me that when you can step into being grateful, it actually uses the part of your brain that's good at problem solving. When we're filled with worry and that tension and anxiety, we get really narrow thinking and we think of few options.
Right.
So if we can do that and then step into gratitude, actually over the next hour or couple of hours or later in the day, more ideas will come to us about how to solve the tough stuff. But if we are constantly gripped with fear or anxiety, then that's going to be our life, maybe for the next 3 years, maybe 5 years, maybe 10 years. And I am unwilling to live that way, in that tension and that gripping. And so I make a plan and I worry for a select time. And then I move into gratitude and the present moment and joy. So this week has been incredible. So first my son went to school and I didn't feel worried about sending him there because my husband and I had that hard conversation about worst case scenario. And then with him, what are you looking forward to about going back to school? Right? We had made the decision. We made the decision. He's going back. What are you looking forward to? Seeing my friends, seeing my teacher, doing cool art projects. So we focused on that. And then I had a day just with my daughter. So we made it a mommy-daughter day, and it was joyful. We did all the things she wanted to do. We baked cookies. She had a gift card for a toy store, so she bought a new stuffed animal. What else did we do? We played board games, and we made bath bombs because she had this kit to make them that we'd never got around to. And so it was joyful. It was just her and I doing fun things. And then her first day of school, my son was home. We did things he loved to do. He bought a new Pokemon set and we went for a bike ride and, we ate hamburgers and did all those things. And it was really joyful. So I have practices every day to train my brain. What do I want to think about? What do I want to feel? Because every day what I want to feel is joyful. I'm alive now. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, but I get to choose my experience for today. So setting a time for worry and addressing those worst fears, and then being really intentional about what do I want to think about and what do I want to feel today? Because I know that if I live every day tense and gripping and worried, I am going to get sick. We know that there's that correlation between our thoughts and our physiology and our overall health. So not only am I going to be spiritually sick because I'm only filled with worry, but I'm going to be physically sick as well, or more prone to that. So what can I do for my family's health? We wash our hands, we wear a mask, we focus on what we can control, and we have joy. That's the recipe we're working with over here.
I love the reframing of that. That it doesn't devalue the significance of the reality that we're in. This is a scary time, and it says let's name that. And the instinct though, when we're faced with that, is that that fight or flight response that you alluded to. And I know I'm guilty of this, like as a person of pretty high anxiety. When I'm stressed, my cortisol levels go up, my heart rate goes up, my blood pressure goes up, and I get tunnel vision. And I'm thinking, okay, there's a, you know, there's a situation in front of me. My brain probably thinks that, you know, there's a bear in front of me. I need to do something about this. Am I going to fight the bear, or am I going to run away from the bear? And I love the sort of the injection of, you know, bringing it back to, you know, we do have, you know, we are physiological animals. We have these responses that keep us safe and that have let us evolve in this and succeed as a human flourishing species. But we do have a mind, in that we can focus ourselves on things that are extrinsic to us, that are outside of us, and we do have things to be grateful for and joyful for, and that's to me such a beautiful piece of good news in this. And so, like, I want to talk about kind of you know, how you're going to mark this year, because this year is going to be different. It's already, you know, Josh and Nanara, your kids, they know that this year is going to be different. They may not realize how different it is because they don't have a whole lot of years to compare it to. But have you thought about any ways that you are going to, you know, build extra family time in, or are there other practices that you're adopting for this year, for this season, that you're kind of saying, okay, our COVID practice is going to be Sundays we go for a hike, those kind of grounding things you mentioned. But as you know, we live in Calgary, where it's winter for 6 months of the year, and then fall is, you know, a week and a half, and we get more winter. But do you have any kind of practices that you found helpful, whether inside or outside? Things that kind of, you know, somebody else could say, oh, that's a great, you know, thing that you've decided to do. I'd like to maybe try to do that with my family as well. Like you mentioned, you know, spending a day with your daughter and kind of doing things that they wanted to do and giving each of your kids one of those days. Are there ways that you as a family unit have kind of found or have thought through how to mark this time? Set it apart?
It's a good question. We haven't done anything specifically to mark this time other than those first 2 days, because the school did a staggered entry, only half the school at a time.
Okay.
So that was really being intentional about how can we make the most of this time. What we're doing this year, now that our kids are a year older, is we've given them more chores. And that might seem like an unusual connection to this COVID time, but when we are at home so much together, we are showing them giving them more responsibility, and showing them how we can be together. You know, my son and my husband were doing the dishes the other day as my daughter and I were like sweeping and vacuuming. And he was like, you know, this is nice because we can like chat. And I was like, yeah, you know, life gives us like chores. There's some to-dos, you know, you have to do them. And so where's the joy in that? And he's finding it. You know, I can talk to you. I get one-on-one time with you, and I'm doing the dishes. And so really focusing and being intentional about a team. You know, we talk about Team Barrett. This is what we're going to do together. And my son's so funny. He's like, well, but we'll get a break from dishes on the weekend, right? I was like, well, are you going to eat on the weekend? Yeah. I guess we'll be doing the dishes together then. Because he's like break time. Are you kidding? Like, you get a break. Did you eat? Then I guess there's dishes to do. So, you know, we're keeping it light and focusing on Team Barrett. How can we pull together, and what do we need to do together? And just because our kids are young doesn't mean they can't make a contribution. So we're really looking at making a contribution. And the other thing we're doing is, because there's more chores, the kids will get a small allowance. And they have 3 categories of savings. They can spend some, save some, like long-term, and share some. And so this is the first year that we've really talked about the share. And so they're going to save until Christmas. And then when there's all sorts of great sharing opportunities, do a little bit of research with them and think about where their heart lies. Do they want to feed people? Do they want to buy toys for kids? You know, what is it that they want to do? So we're really looking at, how do we make a contribution? How can we be helpers in all of this? And in the, you know, small microcosm of our home, and then thinking about at school, in our broader community, how do we want to live? I think this time is really crystallizing what's important and how do we want to live. And the third thing, I guess, is more of those one-on-one times with the kids, because they just love that. So time each week where one of them is with me and one of them is with my husband, because we had a lot of together time, the three of us, during COVID when I was teaching them and my husband was in the basement working. And so they're ready for some time apart from each other. So they're looking forward to more intentionality with our time as well.
That's cool, because I think one of the sort of the key truths that we've kind of adopted here at the Creek is this idea that you don't think yourself into a new way of living, you live yourself into a new way of thinking. That that Richard Rohr quote, and that brings back that sort of that gratitude piece that's so central. By marking this time by saying, okay, there are a lot of people who are out of work. There's a huge struggle in our city already, and then add this on top of it. It trains the kids' brains to see more than themselves. It trains them to see us as part of a wider community, and it trains us to see more than just the narrow scope that we often sort of live under. So I think that's a really great time. I want to start switch gears here a little bit. We've talked a lot about parents, and kind of parenting strategies, and I know that's your bread and butter, but I know you also have a really great relationship with your kids, and it's one of the things that I strive for with building a relationship with my daughter. But as much as there's anxiety for parents going into this, I think there's also going to be a lot of anxiety for kids. And so, do you have any kind of wisdom to share on how to create open lines of communication? Like, how do you make sure that your kids know that if they're scared or worried or something happens at school that they don't know how to process, that they have the ability to talk to you or your husband? I mean, but I'm talking to you right now.
Yeah. So part of that is the one-on-one time. Kids, all of us, we experience something and we're not always ready to say it out loud or talk about it. And so creating those times where you're just together and allowing them that space where they can talk about things. And since they were very young, we've been really open with them and communicating with them and trying to give them, when we're together and there's something positive happening, it's just kind of this chill moment. I might say, coming up in the next little bit, in the summer, for example, we were at a lake, we're having a nice time. And I said, school's going to be really different this year. And they're like, yeah, I know. I was like, you'll have to wear a mask and you won't be able to, be right next to your friends, and, there'll be different routines. I said, but your teachers will help you with all of that. Yeah, okay. So slowly over time, we have kind of shared some information with them so they have time to process it before they're in that moment. So at the end of the day, if they're coming home and they're like, it's really hard to do this, or this kid is really bothering me, or whatever the concerns are, whether they're small or whether they're big. Sometimes it's, there's been times where one of the kids will say, like, I don't want you and dad to die. Like, I'm really scared about that. And those are developmental questions, that kids start asking, those really big questions. And so our practice is, we can't tell them everything's going to be okay, because that's not true. Mm-hmm. And so what we remind them of is, you don't have to go through any of that alone. You have family around, you have a faith family around, we have supportive neighbors and teachers and friends. So when they get scared, whether it's just a little worry or a big fear, reminding them of the resources that they have, and the phrase that we use over and over is, I know that would be hard, and I know you could do it, because that gives them a sense of confidence and that they could figure it out. And I think that's where we are right now. We don't know what 2 weeks is going to bring or what tomorrow is going to bring, but trusting that we have a network around us, resources available to us, like family, connection, faith, grounding to the earth, praying to God, calling a neighbor, talking to the school, reaching out to the food bank, whatever it is, when we can keep ourselves feeling capable, then we are able to reach out to all those resources that are around us. And so knowing, okay, this might be a really hard moment. Collectively, we're having a hard moment, and this moment is long. I keep calling it a season. It's like a long winter. We don't know when the season will end, but we know that it will shift into something different. And what resources do we need around us to support us right now? So those are some of the collection of strategies that we use. That intentional time together where those things can percolate and they can say those scary things, and reminding them like, we'll figure it out and you don't have to do it alone. And it's hard and you can do it, so that they feel capable, that even though they're having a struggling moment, what's the next resource I need? What's the next thing I need to try in this experiment of trying to be resilient and figure out how to live life, and how to live a life that's really feels like it's worth living.
That's so good. Oh, Deanne, thank you so much for this wisdom. This has been a ton. I've been sitting here jotting notes down, and I've got I usually try to put some quotable quotes in the black space around our heads. But there's just going to be a ton of stuff to edit into this video. Thank you so much, Deanne, for being with us and sharing this wisdom with us here at the Creek as we think about. And as we, pray for parents who are in this time of anxiety, we hope that anyone watching this knows that you're not alone in this. That if you want to reach out, you can connect with us by email or Facebook, Instagram, or you can reach out to Deanne at her Instagram handle, which at Radiant Mom Tribe. Hit us up in the comments as well, and make sure that you're subscribed to all of our content here at the Creek on YouTube. And Deanne, thank you so much for being with us.
You're welcome.
And for everybody who's watching, take care of yourselves and take care of each other. All the best for now. See you later.